Hey guys, what's happening? Hey, I want to give you this week's build project update on the 89 CR500. This is the one that Kenny's been riding and training at Southwick, the national track. He's trying to set this thing up to put down a 216 laptop, a 216 lap time, not laptop, on the national track, which would be a qualifying time for a national on a 30-year-old bike. And he's going to race against the best amateurs in New England on this and try to win. So in any event, when you have a 30-year-old motorcycle, come on a little closer, Shane. We'll show them what we did here. This frame, this steel frame CR, is an excellent turning bike. The suspension from 89 is archaic compared to the latest. So if you watch the videos, this is the original set of Öhlins that we had on here. These are the Y2K Öhlins. These are a different style fork, and I can't explain the technical differences in its entirety, but on a high level, this is a 46 millimeter fork. This is a 48, so it's a bigger, sturdier fork. Also, this is DLC coated gold, so a little bit less friction. The weight of the forks is about the same. The length of the travel is about the same. But these are cartridge forks, where these are not. Isn't that correct? Because you can't set the fork oil height by bottoming the fork out on these. You have to measure what goes in, so they're cartridge forks. This is the latest, greatest technologies in Öhlins suspension. This is the 2020 Öhlins fork. We are an Öhlins dealer, so you might wonder, why did we buy this from another Öhlins dealer, from COPPERSMITH? Well, we did because Tom Smith is a guru in Öhlins suspension tuning, and when the factory stopped developing the CR frame back in the early 90s, so the suspension technology that's on this is designed for an aluminum frame with a 4-stroke motor with a different weight distribution and different power characteristics. So we're going to need help tuning this fork. So as an Öhlins dealer, we could have bought these forks for $600 less buying direct from Öhlins, but we wouldn't have the support of COPPERSMITH. One of the first things, you can leave those keys right there. One of the first things that Tom Smith did is, during the consultation, we literally had 2 conversations totaling about an hour and a half on the phone about the suspension, Kenny's weight, where he's riding, and he set these up. They come stock with a 4.7 spring. He put a 4.6, a little bit lighter spring, because the steel frame CR500 is actually a little bit lighter than the 400, and the weight distribution is a little bit different on it as far as the front wheel weight distribution. So with a lighter spring, even though Kenny's 180 pounds, and he set it up the fork height, oil level to the right amount, and put the clickers in the middle. If we have an issue with these forks, now we've got the support of a guy who's doing suspension for factory race teams. You don't get that, unless, when you build a bike to this level, the factory teams, they have a specialist that are doing just the suspension. They have a specialist who's doing just the motor. They have a specialist who's doing different components on the motorcycles, like the brakes. So that's, in essence, we're trying to build what would have been like a national bike from back then. So we got the best suspension guru in the industry working on the forks. Now, these are the 2020 CR450 edition forks set up for this bike. How do we get them to fit? Well, that's another thing. We're also a dealer for Ride Engineering. I could have bought Ride Engineering clamps for less than half the cost of these MIG Racing clamps. Why did we go with the MIG Racing? Well, it's Gary, right?
Yep, Gary Emig.
Gary Emig, Jeff Emig, the national champion racer you may know of. His dad has been making suspension components, and he handmade these clamps, CNC machined them for this 89 CR500, so they're actually bolt on with a 22 millimeter offset. The only thing we had to do was put on the bearing for it, correct? Yep. So we've got MIG Racing clamps, the latest, greatest Öhlins forks. There is a little bit of issue we had mounting the forks today. We have to change the brake caliper mounting bracket. Is that correct? We have to...
Correct, yeah. The mounting caliper, mounting of the caliper, the bracket is a little different, as well as the axle, which we kind of knew we were going to deal with an axle issue. So
we have a CRF450 front axle coming. Moving up from the entirely custom front end, we've got a set of these came from MIG Racing also. I think they're 50 millimeter risers. They're bar risers. They're rubber mounted, and we switched from Kenny's favorite bar, which was the Kenny and the Wizard have been running this bar, and me and Shane, all of us are running the twin wall Renthal bars, which are awesome on a modern 4-stroke. It doesn't vibrate, but the biggest problem Kenny's had is vibration. So taking this crossbar off, some of the pro riders actually cut the crossbar and put a pad on so it reduces vibration. But we went to the fat bar which is hopefully going to reduce the vibration. And we're also going to fill the bar, it's hollow, with a silicone sealant in there full with, we even thought about maybe putting some metal counterweights in there, which is something some of the riders have been doing. They're actually using the big BBs or ball bearings in there. I'm not sure if we're going to do that or not, but we're trying to reduce the vibration getting to the rider's hands. So front end's looking really good. So when it comes to the motor, we built this motor with a hot rod crank, which is what we thought. We bought it through distribution. We used what piston did we use?
Pro-X piston.
A Pro-X piston, which is a good piston with a hot rod crank. We put in a hydraulic clutch to make the clutch action smoother and more consistent. It's got a Hinson clutch basket with a Barnett clutch, so it's got the best. Is that correct? We use a Barnett. So
Barnett clutch.
The best components you could put on for the clutch. Billy spent 30 hours polishing the outside of the cylinder and the cylinder ports. It has a Boyson reed valve, correct? With a Kian Air Striker carburetor. Which, is this the Air Striker? No, this is the regular one.
No, correct. That's the older. That's the original carb.
This is the original 38 millimeter carb. We have an Air Striker on my other bike. That's what we're going to be putting on this. But this bike still vibrates a lot. Some of the issues we had, if you've been following us, he raced this down in Daytona at the Vintage National at the Daytona Supercross track in Bike Week in March. And the engine mount bolts actually fell out because we had just built the bike and we forgot to grind the powder coating off where the motor mounts are, which is something we probably should have done. And the bolts, and Junior forgot to test the motor mount bolts. You're supposed to tighten them. He's learned the hard way. He has a toolkit with him now. We check the motor mount bolts every time you go up. So the vibration from the crank not being a balanced crank, it's a hot rod crank. I think our cost was like $350 on that crank. We ponied up. AJ Wagoner is considered to be, well, the godfather of the CR500, if you will. He owns or owned Service Honda. He owns Built 500. Now he's built thousands of 500s. He's making the billet crank, and for this bike, we ordered one. It's a billet crank just like the HRC factory riders had back in the day. That billet crank is balanced does he send them out to Crankworks, Shane? Or does he balance them in-house?
That one he does in-house.
So they're balanced in-house, and that should really help with the vibration a lot. We're keeping the factory cases because they're in great shape, but we might be upgrading to the aluminum cases next. What we're doing with this motor that we're building for this bike is we're taking, not this block, we're taking a whole other engine, a 92 motor that we have over here. We're doing another build. So as you might have noticed, that there's a second Öhlins shock and there's a second set of Öhlins forks now. So we're using this 92 as our next build. We're building everything we learned in all the 500s we built so far. What we learned is that get the best suspension guy. Go with a guy like COPPERSMITH. Even, I'll get back to the suspension in a second, but we've got this motor right here. This entire motor is going out to be built by MILLAR Race Engineering. So they're out of Canada. We're going to ship this to Canada, and the cases are going to be split. They're going to use the AJ Wagoner crank, and Adam Millar is an absolute guru. He's built hundreds, if not thousands, of these motors. Matter of fact, if you look at what magazine was his bike just in, was it Motocross Action?
Motocross Action, yep.
He just did a build where they did a competition between him and a Kawasaki builder, and he built a KTM framed CR500, and his motor was putting down, I think, 68 rear wheel horsepower is what he tested on a dyno, 65 to 68, I don't remember exactly. Our engine that we built on my 97 500, which is upstairs, put down 55. What he does, Adam Millar, MILLAR Race Engineering, is he's going to use AJ's crank, and then he's going to use a custom stator, and he's going to port the motor, and he has a spacer plate, which has been proven on the dyno for the Boyson Racing Engineering reed valve, where he bores out the reed valve, I'm pretty sure, and puts a spacer on it so it's a better breathing intake. Then he has a custom exhaust flange combined with a FMF pipe. So we're going to have the crank done. It's going to be bored out with a, what piston did Adam say he's going to use?
We're going to use a Vertex forged piston.
A Vertex forged piston, and they don't make these anymore. We bought the last two we could find on the internet. It's an FMF fatty pipe. We have a Pro Circuit on there. I didn't notice until I talked to Adam and also Ben Probst, another CR500 guru. Ben Probst is not, I don't know what he does for a living, but he's a 500 guru that spent a shit ton of money on dyno runs. He's paid for over 150 dyno runs between his CX540 that he built and his CR500. And he figured out, Ben did, how to using most of the same components I'm talking about here with porting from a company called, I think it's MLR. But Ben's a friend of mine on Facebook. Check him out. He's going to set the Guinness World Book record sand dune jump with one of the bikes he's building. He's got a rider that's going to attempt to do that this summer, so stay tuned. We're going to be doing some videos of that on our channel. So back to the motor. We are using the best in the industry for the suspension, and we are a race shop. Look around, you've got 6 lifts. We build 50 bikes a month, but sometimes you got to know your limitations. Sometimes you're better off. I'm going to be real dizzy. Slow down. Don't go too fast. Christy always says, don't do that to the camera because it makes me dizzy. Sometimes you got to know we don't have a dyno here, so we can't prove that what we're doing is working. And we do know that the best, in my opinion, the best 500 gurus on the planet are AJ Wagoner at Built 500 and Adam Millar at Millar Race Engineering. So we're using AJ's components, and Adam's going to build the motor and use some of his components, port the motor, and send us back a dyno-tuned package that has even the jetting settings on the carb. Everything's going to be matched together for that exhaust system, and that bike's going to be putting down on a dyno. We're going to dyno it here. We have All Sport Cycles. Jeff Castine up in Mass is going to dyno the motor for us once it's done, just to prove that bike's going to be putting down damn near close to 70 horse, high 60 anyways, somewhere between 65 and 68. It doesn't really matter, really, at that point, how much horsepower you have, because it's more than most mortals can use. It's got to be usable power with a nice torque curve. Adam knows that we're building this for my son. He knows this is no expense spared build, and he knows that we want a raceable motor, not one for sand dunes or sand riding or hill climbing. This isn't a point and shoot bike. This is a race bike that we're going to use on national motocross tracks. So the motor is going to be on point. The frame, the Wizard, Chris Kelly's going to handle, and his son Shane, who's behind the camera, are handling coordination of all the parts, getting all the parts, the spare parts. Wizard's been going to Southwood with Junior every Wednesday for the motocross school they have there. He's trying to get tuned in on that track. Wizard's been racing there for 40 years. So, and won championships in races and tons of races as a novice and amateur and as an expert. I think he won a vet championship there too, but he's been racing there forever. Knows his shit, and he's helping my son dial the bike in. Shane, behind the camera, is also a jetting guru, so Shane's riding. All of us are riding the bikes. If you watched our video a couple weeks ago, the entire staff went to our compound. We all rode the 500s we built, the 7 of them. Why? So we could see what the differences are, see what combinations are working better. And what we found is that the balanced crank helped a lot with the vibration. So we're not using a OEM Honda crank. We're using a hand-built billet crank that's going to be micro-balanced. So we're really excited about that. It's very similar to what the HRC factory riders had back in the day. There's some specialists in the industry. You got to stick with the specialists. Anthony Moore, he's making kick-ass seats for these CR500s. So maybe we'll get a cover from him and graphics packages. Support the guys in our industry who are the gurus. You know, like I said, I forked over another $600 for these forks because I knew the guy that was, you know, I could order them from Owens, but I'm paying extra to get it done right and get the support. And that's kind of humbling to say, you know, we know our limitations. We're also getting the motor done by the best guys in the industry. And Wizard and Shane and Billy, we're all going to work together to get this thing dialed in. It's little things you do for the rider to make it more comfortable for him. We're ordering a set of pegs that are a little bit lower than this. Where are we at with the pegs on?
Oh, we have them. Those are actually in my office down back.
These pegs, my 97 has the same pegs, but they make a high and a low model. Kenny's 6'2". It's going to drop the pegs down a good ½ an inch. These fat bars are a high-rise bar with a 50-millimeter riser, and they're dead nut center on the fork, so it's going to give him the ability to stand up on the bike without squinching over and stretching himself out. We also use a high-rise seat foam like this. This is the actual seat right here. And it's getting a little ratty, so we're going to get another seat cover. The bike kind of looks like shit right now. It's got what we call his ghetto graphics on there. They're just a set that are off of an old bike, but we have some kick-ass new graphics. that are going to go with this. Look at this. Look at the thickness of the seat. Compare this to what's on a new CR500. It's about twice as much foam. So when you get a little tired, you got to sit down or seat balance. It protects your spine, and it also makes the transition. The taller seat makes the transition from sitting down to standing up better for a rider. Those are the things that really count. And what Junior talks about the most when he gets off the bike is the suspension settings. The reason we switched from these forks to these is not to go from 46 to 48, because that's not that much of a difference. It's mainly for the dampening characteristics of the new forks are going to be better. They'll have a lot less compression. Dampening, we tried backing the compression dampening all the way off on the old ones and running a 5-weight fork with a less fork oil, and it was still too stiff. So what we're going to do is these Olin forks and shock that you see on the bench right here. This is out of an 89 CR also. These are going to Tom Smith at COPPERSMITH, and he's going to rebuild these and valve them to work on the 92 chassis. So we'll have 2 sets of Olin suspension set up. We didn't talk about the shock on the back of this bike. I did have a long conversation with Tom Smith at COPPERSMITH about the rear Olins. You can't buy this shock in the US. There's a company online from, I think, the UK, or I know they're overseas somewhere, that doesn't really speak English very well, and I ordered this shock from them. They're the only company I could find in the continental US. Olin's won't build us this shock. The clevis is different, the length is different. You can't just put any shock on a bike, because as the suspension compresses, things can happen, like the shock can hit the swing arm, the reservoir can hit the frame as the bike flexes and moves, so you got to have one that's engineered right. So this company in the UK, and this was expensive, it was a $1,600 shock. We'll be into the suspension on this bike for close to $5 grand by the time it's all set up and done, but it'll be a world-class set of 2020. This is a 2020 Olin's PFP shock. This is the same thing you get if you order. You see the national riders that have Olin shocks and forks. This is the same stuff. It's just in a 31-year-old bike that happens to be putting down, when we get that MILLAR racing engine in there, close to 15 horsepower more than actually a stock 450s. What are they putting down, about 54 horse now? 54,
52 to the
52.
wheel.
So this would be putting down 15 horsepower more with probably 25% more torque. With Kenny, who's a big, strong, young kid, riding it, I think is a good shot. He's going to win some races on this against the new bikes, and it's pretty cool. Anybody can get a new 450 and do it, but to take a 30, these things are a beast. They're a little bit harder to handle. They hit hard, but these are the changes we're making to make this bike. Handling the vibration on the motor, getting a stronger torque curve at a lower RPM ratio. The running gear on the bike, we're running the Shane built and his dad built this set here. What kind of spokes did you use on this?
Those were Excel spokes with Excel gold rims and spline drive spokes and nipples.
What'd you run for a chain and running gear? I know we had a bunch of choices on that too.
I think we have an RK or a EK gold chain on there, and we also have a gold super sprocket with the steel outer ring on it, which is nice, especially for Junior. You can hammer that sprocket for a long time without having to change it out.
You know, when you look at the factory teams that build a bike like this and go out and race it, they literally work on it for months. You know, they have they're developing their race bike for that year, multiple guys, and they have thousands of hours into it. Our typical frame-off restoration usually takes somewhere about 100 hours. This was, we were into this 150 hours when Wizard and Chris was done building this the first time, and we had 30 hours in the polishing the swing arm, the head, the cylinder head, and all the aluminum pieces on it. And who knows how much time Shane and I were chasing parts. Christy has 15 hours into the graphics, which aren't even on this bike right now. This tank, this is the tank we're putting on it for when it's ready for races. This was handmade in the UK. They've got a solid, really solid vintage market over there. Johnny Letty, who, if you Google Liger 500 or 550 dyno run, he's got a dyno run where his bike put down, I think, 92 horsepower at the rear wheel on a CR500 Liger. It's incredible how far they've taken those motors. But Johnny hooked me up with this tank, and it's a bolt-on aluminum with twin ram air. See, the ram air goes right into the air box, drawing cold, cool air from the top of the front of the bike as you're zipping down the straightaway at 60 miles an hour. It's like a ram air effect. So that'll be going on the bike along with the FMF Gold Series pipe. The Gold Series pipe's going on there straight away. Aluminum tank we're going to put on when it's ready for the races. This is the next wheel set that we're building. Describe what you got here, Shane.
So instead of using the stock hubs like the last set, this is Excel gold wheels with gold billet Talon hubs. Definitely upgrade over the stock cast hubs, and again, Bulldog spline drive, spokes and nipples, top of the line stuff.
We had some trouble getting these, didn't we? How long did it take us? Didn't we spend months sourcing these?
It took a while, yeah.
That's pretty sexy, huh? Yep. Pure motor porn right there.
It had to come straight from Italy because it's not exactly the off-the-shelf kind of thing,
So this is going to be one special bike for one great kid. We love Kenny very much, and we want to give him the best equipment. If he chose to, he could be riding a brand new YZ250 or a new YZ450 or whatever the hell he wanted to. Let's face it, we have a race shop here. And he hasn't raced for a few years because, well, frankly, one of our friends died racing, and then I broke my back, and Kenny had his third major injury, and we just hung it up for a while. He's getting back into it for vintage racing to keep it fun. We really get a lot of satisfaction out of building a bike like this, right, Shane? Your pops,
absolutely,
and you, me and Kenny meeting and going over all the changes. Your dad going to the racetrack with him, and it's gratifying. And we're doing something that not a lot of people are doing, and the people that are the best in this industry, straight up, go check out Built 500. Get your cranks from them. Take a look at MILLAR Race Engineering. Get your motors done by him. Hit up Ben Probst to hook up with his race shop. He's got dyno reports putting down 71 horse on a KX540, 68 on a CR500. Real numbers, real world numbers on what they call disappointment dynos, because the factories say the 450s put down 60 horse. Well, you put them on one of our dynos and they're putting like a X Pro or up at All Sport, they're going to be putting down 50 to 54 at the rear wheel. That's the real world numbers. So a stock CR500 will put down between 48 and 53 depending on your setup. But these built motors are putting down in the high 60s. So we're really excited to get one of those. Another upgrade on this bike, the radiators are a little bit larger, oversized aluminum radiator to keep things running cool. What else have you done to this bike along the way? Because I think we've pretty much analyzed to death every component on this thing.
Yeah, the GPI, bigger oversized radiators with a higher boiling point radiator cap on it. As Ken stated, Pro Circuit pipe is going to be coming off, and along with that FMF Gold Series fatty is going to be a shorty silencer to match up to that too. And probably going to be a little bit of a combination of trying stuff, one pipe with another silencer, and we got a couple other things to come into a Bill silencer. Supposedly that's a hot setup. So just going to be kind of trial and error with some of that stuff.
One of the things we learned is we thought that drilling the holes in the radiator box was the hot setup. Actually, we bought this box with a bike like this. We thought, hey, it must flow better. Well, it allows dirt into the air box, unfortunately. And we found out from I'm pretty sure it was out of MILLAR, they dyno tuned the bike with the seat off, and it put down the same numbers. So what does that mean? Well, if it's wide open on the top, a couple little holes on the side aren't going to help. So we're plugging these back up, or actually we should probably swap this box out and just put another box in it. Sometimes the things that you think are going to work don't work. We have a Pro Circuit pipe on there. We didn't know this, but MILLAR Race Engineering and Ben Probst's shop, I think it's LMR, have dyno tuned with that pipe, that Pro Circuit pipe. It was putting down like 3 horsepower less than the FMF, 3 to 4 horsepower, and that's a big difference. So thanks for watching so far. A lot of cool trick things like the rear brake rotor, front and rear are
yeah, both are oversized. Rear is oversized, and the front that was on it too was a braking oversized.
Yeah, check out the size of this. This thing will stop on a dime. So
yeah, I believe that's a 260 or 270 millimeter. It had to have a bracket. It's big enough that it needed a relocation bracket.
Once the suspension is totally done and dialed in on this, all the testing is done, and we have the new, we have a crank ordered for this one. We're actually putting the crank from AJ Wagner at Built 500 in this motor, along with a new piston, and we're also building another motor using his crank and components. So we're pretty excited about taking this bike to the next level. Stay tuned. I'm pretty sure we're going to have some exciting footage for you guys with junior racing this thing, webcam footage of local racing, and we'll be back to Daytona next year with this thing dialed in. The cool thing about building a vintage bike is, well, doesn't go out of style. It's already 3 decades out of style, so it's back in style. They're always cool, and you can have a long life cycle with this bike. You don't have to change it every year. You've got a vintage CR, and you want to keep building it. The people are out there to support Anthony Moore. Hook up with him on Facebook. Buy your stuff from him because he's doing the research to come up with whole seat kits. Who else are the vendors that you think in our industry are helping us the most?
Yeah, Anthony's great with the seat covers and the decals. He's making a lot of OEM style decals, so definitely hit him up for that kind of stuff. It's getting harder to find that. VMX plastic, huge,
I forgot to mention that.
huge hookup for us.
Why do we like VMX the best?
Well, not only do they have the shiniest, best plastic out there, but I also come to him a lot of time for hard to get stuff that I can't get from other vendors like chain sliders, chain blocks, intake manifolds. And other little hard parts too, but his plastic is really the highlight. It's just nothing better than his stuff for sure.
Cody, what's happening? You got a stack of cash for us?
I'm bringing you guys a couple presents. We sold the KLX.
I know we did, guys. We just sold a brand new, never been ridden KLX 300 for $4,600. I said to Junior, I can't buy that bike again for that price, and they wanted to come down to 45. I was like, what do you want me to work for? We're working for free here. So the bike, I had set the reserve at 49, so we just hooked up some friends of ours with a brand new 300cc 4-stroke for $4,600. Where's that going to happen?
Drove out from New York. They're really great guys. They've been here 2 or 3 times now. They were dying for that 91 KX500 when we first got it.
Yeah.
They didn't get it. We sold it to somebody else. Kenny bought it back. When it's done, I think they'll be back again, to be honest with you. They've been eyeballing that for about 3-4 hours now.
That thing is nasty.
Shane, I got your title here as well.
What's the title for it?
It's new hot rod.
Okay, awesome. All came in?
Thank you.
Excellent.
So that's all for you guys. Everything else, take care.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
All set. No problem, guys.
Take care, brother. So, yeah, we're excited about this build. We have literally a year into this at last Memorial Day. If you've been following us, I gave Kenny the cylinder polished in a box, and I was like, here's your birthday present, a CR500 cylinder. And he was excited because he knew we were building this bike, and we started with the cylinder. Then we powder coated the frame, and we've been building it since there. The next one is this 92. Shane, what are your plans with this one here? Obviously, we're sending this motor out to be built by MILLAR Race Engineering, Adam MILLAR. You've already powder coated the frame. You've got a WR steering dampener, or Scott's steering dampener setup. We're going to have to do the front end off of that one, the old Olin's front end's going on to this one.
Yep.
We're going to send it first to COPPERSMITH to have them revalve it, and then the shop. But where are you going from there?
From there, we're going to have Adam do his stuff to this motor, make it the same spec as that 89 with all the billet crank, forged piston, all of his spec stuff, motor work, porting, head work, whatever he would like to throw at it. Air Striker key and carb, definitely going to standardize that on both bikes just so they carburate a little better. And from there, then it's just going to be a lot of little goodies. I mean, this one's already got some good stuff on it. It's got the alloy aluminum subframe on it, and also a little newer bodywork. So we're gonna make it look a little different than the other one. The other one's gonna be more of the classic blood red, where this one is gonna probably be a little different.
Maybe Junior let me do a Captain America theme on this one for him.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's already got the white frame. I see red, white, and blue. Get rid of the purple seats. That's going to be a cool project. I'm looking forward to that. Some of the other cool stuff we got a vintage RT180 Yamaha. We just finished doing a light restoration on. That'll be coming out. We've got a KE100 Kawasaki that we just resurrected with 1,144 miles. We got a Husqvarna 390 coming out next week. We're going to do a video of Bill's TZ750 four-cylinder two-stroke. We're going to do we're going to start doing one video a week from Carl, our roaming diplomat. He's a roaming guru, does the tours of the museum, and he's going to pick a bike. He's going to do one whole video about the history of the TZ750. He's going to do one on what was the other one? That bike from the UK, the four-cylinder.
Oh, the Nimbus.
The Nimbus. He's going to do one on that. But so we got some real cool stuff coming your way. We got an XR500 that came from Mike Bressler out of New York City. He traded this on a DT400. We're just getting that dialed in. Mike, you might not have known, but your head gasket was shot on it. Oops. We got to pull the motor on it to do the head gasket. So that is what it is. You win some, you lose some used bikes. But you may not have known that, right? Isn't that the motor's got to come out?
Correct. Yeah, we looked in the service manual. Unfortunately, four-stroke.
The bad news is
got to come out.
We didn't know that. The rest of the bike is great. It'll come out great. The good news is that the little three-wheel Honda ATC 200 is on point. The thing's beautiful. Got another KX500 coming your way, guys.
Yes, 87 KX500.
We'll frame up on that.
82 CR250 with a white power shock and some other cool stuff on it. That's going to be up next week.
We've got a TS 185 from Mike Bressler. And then I've got my MX80 that we're resurrecting, and I'm gonna try to hang on to this until I don't have money for payroll or taxes, and then I'll have to sell it. But hopefully I can hang on to this thing. I want to resurrect this, and it's gonna be Mike Bressler, you and me, rumble in the brickyard, calling you out, brother. We'll race around the dumpster. So no, seriously, Mike bought my last GT80, which is a beautiful bike, and hopefully he'll get up here and we'll get to do some drag races or a little moto in the brickyard. So looking forward to that. This is Jimmy's KTM 360. We just had a dyno port pipe. Tell us what pipe was built for this.
So this is a 99 380 SX that Jimmy decided to buy from Ken, and had a hand-built dyno port ceramic pipe with a big core. They call it the big core Barker silencer, and it definitely lives up to the name. It's a big core coming out. Got a great unique sound to it. We tested it a couple times, and I think Jimmy's a fan of the Electron, so he ordered a high velocity 38mm Electron that's set up for his bike that we're going to be trying next week, and I think we're all a little curious to see really how that's going to run.
Yeah, which magazine just did a write-up on these? I think it was Motocross Action. There's a write-up on their website talking about how great these bikes really were this particular years, which was what, 96 to
98 to 99 had the last generation of the conventional forks with the stanchions up top and the legs down low. Big 50mm. That was really the last hurrah for the conventional forks, and White Power really got it down.
The real calling card of this bike is the big bore 360 two-stroke motor in this thing. It's an absolute fire-breathing dragon. So as Kenny says, it's as fast as a stock 500 Honda, and I'd have to agree after riding one. I think the horsepower was right there. I think these were in the mid-50s.
Yep, peak horsepower is pretty close, but they lack a little bit of the torque that the pure 500 has. But pretty close, though. Pretty close.
The other project that we'll have coming your way, we can watch us ride them and demo them. This is the Kawasaki 650, the W650 Twin, and that about sums it up. Upstairs, we've got a ATC 200 and a 200 Yamaha, Honda and Yamaha. We're going to do a little shootout on those next week. Anything else coming down? Oh, we got a Can-Am 250 coming your way.
Can-Am MX-1 250 with a very low serial number. Super low serial number.
One of the first ones imported that came from Dom Cilio's collection out of Pennsylvania. So some great bikes coming your way. Stay tuned. Hopefully Junior will get out Wednesday. You think we'll have this ready for Wednesday for salvage?
I think we will.
If not, we're going to have to send them out my 97, so you can't let me get too rusty.
Yeah,
so.
We just ordered the front axle, so hopefully it'll be here Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest.
Excellent. Well, thanks for watching, folks. As always, stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. 85% of our viewers aren't subscribed. I'm not really sure why, but I saw that on our YouTube analytics. So hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow our channel. And hit the ring the bell so we can give you notifications when the new videos come in. Thanks for watching. God bless America.